Oh, hi there, lovely soul. Welcome to this week's episode of Lotus Life the Podcast. My name is Rose Tautari, and I am, among many things in this lifetime, a human design guide, a soul mentor, an author, and a podcaster. And this is a show where each week we get to hang out and chat about all things human design related. I'm here to teach you how you can thrive in your most aligned life by empowering yourself to understand your unique soul's purpose. Human design is a beautiful synthesis bringing together ancient wisdom, modern science, and is a way of really understanding the contract between your soul and the universe for who you came here to be, what you came here to do, and the karma you came to correct this lifetime around. This podcast, Lotus Life, is a celebration of embodying the incredible lotus flower that blooms and thrives, growing from the muddiest and murkiest of conditions in life. So get ready to lotus your life. So today's episode is part 2 in a 3-part series that I am bringing to your ears, talking all about the centers and chakras within the human design bodygraph, the chart that you get when you put in all your birth details that is unique to you and is what your soul has come here with in this lifetime. So last week I talked about the defined centers, which is all the ones that are colored in. I'll put a link in the show notes with this episode if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one yet. And this week what I'm talking about is all of the undefined centers. Now, as a just quick glance, this is everywhere in your chart where those shapes that denote the different centers, the different chakras that are going on within you are white. So the differences here between undefined and what the next episode in this series is going to be all about the open centers. So the thing that makes it undefined is that it will be white, colored white. However, there will be at least one red or black, doesn't matter the color, line that is coming from that shape, that center, that chakra within your chart. And that line is like a little halfway line that only extends out of the shape but doesn't actually meet up with anything. It's just kind of sitting there hanging out on its own. So you can take a really quick glance at your chart and basically see wherever there are any of these centers, chakras that have got a red or black or both. You know, there might be multiple lines coming off it, but the shape itself is colored in white, and there are, you know, any number of combination of red and black lines. There can be single lines that are colored both red and black. In some chart software, this is like it's split down the middle and one side is red and one side is black. And then in others, it will be sort of like a hashed kind of a striped pattern where the red and the black sort of go sideways or on an angle. So really all that means is that as long as the shape is white and it has got at least one line coming off it, might have many lines that don't connect up with anything. So it's kind of sitting there out on its own. Those are your undefined centers. So within your chart, you might have lots of these, or you might have only one, for example. So it really doesn't matter what you have. It's your unique combination of attributes that is true and especially for you. It's what your soul came here with. It's what you are uniquely designed to have within you, and everything comes together to interweave and tell your own beautiful soul story about your attributes, your uniqueness, your gifts, and your particular brand of magic, right? We are all incredibly different, incredibly powerful in our own right, and this is the new paradigm, right? Where we celebrate everyone's individuality rather than being stuck in the mindset that we need to all be the same as each other or that we should be comparing ourselves to one another. Human design chucks all of that bullshit out the window and we are heading for the new paradigm. We're already there, right? If you are listening to this podcast, no matter how far along your human design journey you are, whether you've only just started, whether you have been doing this for several years already, you're already living and breathing the new paradigm. So what do the undefined parts of your chart represent? Well, for a start, this series of podcasts is really to allow you to be able to take a glance at your chart and work out the kind of characteristics and attributes that are true for you. So from last week's episode, you would have been able to take a look at the places where you have defined or definition. And these will be the centers or chakras that are colored in. So you can pick out of that episode the ones that are relevant for you, because obviously you're not going to have every single one of them. For most people, they've got some balance of colored in and then white, which is defined, undefined, and then we'll go on to talk about open in the next part in this series. So the undefined centers, what that means for you when you take a look at your chart and see the ones that you have within you. These are really the attributes and characteristics that come from each of these chakras is still within you. However, your way of tapping into them is what you could call either inconsistent or is more of a wave sort of pattern. It's more of an ebb and flow. It doesn't have that, I guess, way in which the defined centers are consistent in terms of being able to tap into it. The undefined centers, it's a lot more open to the energetics of the world. It is much more of the places in which you can basically take on board everything that you choose to and keep nothing if you decide to. It's very much the places within you that you are typically going to be the most sensitive, the most empathic, the most open to other people, being able to use your senses in a way that is more heightened because you have got that lack of definition through these parts of you. So depending on where it shows up in your chart is going to be, again, your unique set of gifts. So it certainly doesn't mean that you are unable to access these talents. No, like you still have them within you. It just means that your permission slip you give yourself is that you don't expect yourself to have this consistent level of, say, drive or motivation to use that characteristic all the time, every day in the same manner. It means that one day you might tap into it really strongly and be feeling like you can make use of that those characteristics really, really powerfully. And the next day, they might kind of go for a walk on you and they're not there. And that is okay. That is your truth. That is what you are here for. And this is where it gets really beautiful with understanding the whole story of your unique human design, because then you can understand how it is that you can make use of that gift of being inconsistent, in that sense of reframing what it means to be inconsistent, because it actually means that you have got the openness and the flexibility and just the ability to be that person who energetically is more sensitized to the world around you from a positive standpoint. If you've got lots of definition in your chart, as in the colored in centers, that's beautiful too. It means that you've come here with the characteristics within you that are kind of yours to tap into, and you've got that energetic buffer against the outside world because you need to be able to just kind of get on with your own shit and not be as affected by the outside world. Whereas if you have plenty of white spaces in your chart, then you are someone who has come here with that openness and that just being so, I guess, in tune with the energetics of others and your surroundings, and that sensitivity from the positive expression. You know, I think there's so much that needs to be rewritten and better understood in terms of the gift that highly sensitive people have, the gift of being empathic, the gifts of just being able to be sensitized to the world around you, because we've for too long been operating from that heavily old paradigm masculine structure around what it means to be successful, what it means to get ahead, what it means to be living your purpose, that has kind of cast aside anyone who has got plenty of. If you probably took a look at their chart, probably all the people who've got more white centers than colored in ones, the world has been trying to tell you that you were not cut out for this world, which is complete bullshit, right? We all are. And now moving into this new paradigm, it's showing that more and more and more we need the people who are open and sensitized and bring that in that form, that unique form of intelligence to the forefront that allows you to be incredible gifts to the world and to bring your magic out into the light to use, because the world needs you more than ever. So what I'm going to do this week in this episode is similar to last week's, if you listened in, is I'm going to start with the very top, the head center, the crown chakra of the human design body graph, and kind of work my way down, talking through the different chakras and centers so that you can basically listen along with a cuppa in hand and your chart in front of you and see where the undefined centers for you pop up within your chart. And so you can kind of use this as a bit of a quick reference to go back to so that you can remind yourself and go, oh yeah, that's right, I have an undefined throat center, and these sorts of things, that you can just use it as a bit of a reference guide to jump back, to give yourself some wee love notes, to remind yourself of, yes, what your challenge is going to be, because you have got the lack of definition there. So it is much easier to take on board what we call conditioning within human design, which basically just means that through those places that you are undefined, you are more open to the energetics of the world. And it just means that you can take on board, but also amplify what it is that is kind of surrounding you through those centers or chakras. Specifically, if you are, say, around someone who has got that corresponding same center or chakra defined within their chart, then even more so that you're going to be picking up on what they're kind of emanating, absorbing it and amplifying it. So you will be feeling it like this sort of strange kind of hot potato that is not yours, but you don't quite know what to do with, and you've been left kind of holding on to it. And so often there's a pressure or an urgency to try and do something with it, which leaves you kind of taking action from a place that is not aligned for you. So this is why it's really powerful to understand where you have picked up conditioning, whether that's other people's thoughts, what they tell you should be doing, what society might have told you is the correct, and I say correct in inverted commas here, way to show up in this world, and all of that crap that is, not yours, essentially. And really with the places where you have any whiteness in your chart, those are the places to start to really do the inner work, to really dive into healing those parts of you, because those are the areas where you can potentially have the greatest amount of conditioning to flush out and get rid of, and to kind of reset back to who you truly are. And it also means that those are the places where you can have the absolute deepest wisdom that comes from. So it's kind of like your soul's little life learning moments are through all these places where you have whiteness in your chart. And so we're talking about the ones that are undefined today, and then in the third part of this series we'll talk about the centers and chakras as when they are completely open, because they kind of have an even greater capacity for conditioning, kind of have their whole own set of attributes as well that are slightly different to the undefined. So I like to make that distinction between the two. And yes, I will refer to, even when we're talking about undefined, I will talk about openness, but it means in the sense of more energetic openness, not being not having that part of your chart open in the definition that comes with human design. But when I talk about openness in this episode, it's more just that sort of your aura being open to the world, your energetic body being open to the world around you, and allowing things to come and go through you. So let's start by talking about the head center, the crown chakra. This is right at the very top of your body graph, your chart. So again, this is for if this is white, this upwards facing triangle that is right at the top of the head. If this is white but has either some red or black lines coming from the different gates that are within the head chakra, head center, then this is undefined for you. So this is a center that, as I explained in the last episode, this is one of our two pressurized centers within our selves, our body. This is where our chi, life force energy comes in and is pressurized so that it moves through us, and everything's heading towards the throat chakra to be essentially that pressure being released, but in the form of manifestation, right? It's that life force energy that is released from us through that speaking into reality, right? So the head center is pressurized. And when this is undefined, because the attributes of this center is to do with our kind of questioning of life, and also the flip side of that being our doubts about life, when you have this undefined, it will be really easy to put pressure on yourself to feel like your inspiration isn't consistent enough, and that you might feel like you get really sidetracked within your own head, right? So the challenge here is to rise above that pressure that you will feel that even goes into trying to make sense of things, right? To look for the logic or pattern in any given situation. So if you're living in that state of you've allowed other people's questions and doubts to come in, and you've absorbed them and amplified them, because remember, you haven't got a buffer here against other people's kind of way of thinking and their questions and their doubts that they might have. It can be really easy to end up almost absorbing it all like a sponge. So with all of these centers and chakras that I'm going to talk about, I use the analogy a lot of a sponge, that when you have these places in you that are undefined, it's almost like you've got a sponge there that can either spend its whole day soaking up the energetics of the world around you, and then it gets full, it gets heavy, it gets completely bogged down with everybody else's crap. However, for you, how you want to be essentially living is that it's okay for those things to come in as long as you've got your really good boundaries and self-care practices. That means that basically you kind of wring the sponge out, right? And it goes back to being light and fluffy and airy. And how you almost want to be living life with these places that are undefined for you is transforming that sponge to be more like a sieve. So you want to be living life that you're empowered with knowing that the world's energetics around you, in this case with the head center, the crown chakra, that questions and doubts are flying around you at all times, whether it's from the news, whether it's on social media, whether it's the people that you live with, or spend time with during your day. Your kind of empowered way of being with an undefined head center is to transform into living as if you've got a sieve there. So it basically means that you allow everything to kind of pass through you. You don't hold on to anything, because essentially it means that it's all external to you. It's everybody else's questions, doubts, whatever it is that's coming at you. And when you allow yourself to let it kind of pass through you, you can then use your aligned strategy and authority to choose the things that are correct for you, that feel good, that are essentially what you want to hold on to, that you'll go, yeah, I really love that way of questioning things, so I'm going to hold on to that. But all the other 99.9% of the days, energetics can pass through you, and you don't need to hold on to them. So it's relieving that pressure that you will always feel by being open to basically the wonder and the mystery of the world, right? It's allowing yourself to be empowered in knowing that your gift is not to have this really consistent way of viewing the world. It is your ability to be open to new insights, to allow yourself to be suddenly one day filled with so much inspiration out of the blue, and with real ease, right? It's removing any of those false kind of definitions around what it is to be inspired, what it is to question the world, and just allow yours to be much more of like an ebb and flow of the tide. One day it might be high tide and you've got so much going on in your mind, and the next day you allow it to be that kind of blank slate, and the tide has gone out again, and that's okay. Doesn't matter if you are not feeling like every single day you wake up with the inspiration that you see other people, and again, remember that when you see other people, they are living with an entirely different type of human design to you. No matter whether you're the same energy type, you might be two generators, they might have a whole lot of definition going on in their head space. So, it's really important to just stick to the gifts that you have and really enjoy what you've come here with. Learn to transform the places where you feel that pressure into something that is a gift that you can use. Now, dropping straight down below that head center, that crown chakra, is the Ajna, right? The third eye. It's our mind consciousness center. And this is the second triangle shape that is facing downwards now. It's like the mirror image of the top. So this is, when this is undefined, this is a place where you can really enjoy the beauty of having an open and flexible mind, right? If you've ended up with too much conditioning being absorbed from others around you, it can feel like your mind is just full, right? It is chock-a-block full. It is really hard to determine what is your way of seeing things, what is your perception of the world, what is your, viewpoint. However, when you allow yourself to have really good boundaries here, to flush out all of that, what you might have picked up, again, from childhood, you might have been heavily conditioned by, say, your caregivers, your parents, your siblings, your best friends, of their way of seeing the world and their perception about things and their opinions. Whereas for you, if this is undefined, you set yourself free from all of that and you flush all of that away, and you basically go, I am open to everything. I have a flexible mind, and that is my gift. I'm not designed to hold on to one fixed viewpoint. I'm here to see the multitude of viewpoints, and it's really allowing yourself to free up that space so that you can have that full range of stimulation and perception and creativity. And it's transforming here so that you sieve through essentially all of the information that is coming your way in every moment of every day, and you really get to learn to discern what does have value for you, and using your aligned strategy and authority, you can then choose to hold on to what serves you, but the rest, you can just let it go. And that is the real beauty of an undefined Ajna, is that you can just choose to let stuff go and not sit there, with it kind of all soaked up and heavy within your mind. It's that beauty of going, actually, you know what? I'm completely open-minded and I'm happy to see things from all sides. And I don't feel the pressure to have to commit myself to one viewpoint or another, even though all of the people around me might be keeping their fixed minded, this is how I see the world, right? Your gift is to see all of it and to appreciate all of it for what it is, their nuances, their individuality, and just to go, actually, you know what? My gift is to not be fixed minded. My gift is to see it all and to kind of rise above those viewpoints and understand the bigger picture, and to really just enjoy the fact that you can be that kind of I won't say neutral ground, because it obviously doesn't mean you have to be neutral, but it's far more of the Buddha mind, right? It is the ability to see the good, the bad, everything, the yin and the yang, like you just understand that wisdom that comes with being open and flexible within your mind. So now straight down below the Ajna center, you've got the throat chakra, which is the square shape, which is in the human body graph sitting at that throat position within the chart. Now, this is one that I love getting into to talk to people about when they have this undefined within their chart, because I really am passionate about helping people to be empowered when they live with an undefined throat chakra, because there is so much pressure going on here, not only within yourself, if this is undefined for you. So if it's undefined, remember, it will have some lines coming off it, and they'll be red or black, and there are a lot of potential channels that come from the throat chakra. So there's heaps, right? So it can really mean that even though this is undefined, you can have so many attributes that are yours to use. The trick with an undefined throat chakra is that you learn to live with the pressure that is always there from an empowered point of view of understanding that you don't need to try and control. You don't need to bow to, say, the pressures of the world around you that try to tell you how you should use your voice. You really are here to redefine what it means to live within your own magic and your own power, to really understand your aligned energy type strategy, your individual authority, so that you can know the moments when it is aligned for you to use your incredible voice that you do have. However, often for most people, when they first come across human design and they, have an undefined throat chakra, they're living life from either two extremes. The first is that the pressure they feel means that they are going, oh my God, it's like all backed up, right? It's like, think of like a balloon that's like inflating and inflating and inflating with that pressure behind it that it just wants to pop. So this is the pressure to like just relieve that in some way, shape or form, which comes from that sort of sense of it's almost like using your voice to attract attention or to relieve that feeling of going unnoticed, right? Because you've got something to say, or you need to relieve the pressure, but you really don't know what to say, right? So it's this pressure that can build, that can come from the sense of just blurting out. It's like just talking for the sake of talking. It's that kind of running your mouth and you can't stop. And then you kind of like go home and you just go, oh my God, why did I just keep blabbering, right? And it can kind of come from that fear of going, I really feel like if I don't just blurt it all out, I'll never be given an opportunity to sort of speak to what I have to say. I won't get another situation to share my voice, right? So that can kind of be the one extreme. And then the other is that undefined throat centers can live basically with that fear of opening their mouth in the first place. So they'll be the person who has got so much going on the inside, and like their brain will be like on a hamster on a wheel, like going crazy, working in overtime to try and figure out what they should say. But it's like their mouth just stays like zipped shut and they really don't know anything to say. It's like the chaos that's going on inside can't come out in any kind of sense of logical flow of words, so you just end up saying nothing. And the challenge here with an undefined throat chakra is to almost get comfortable with the fact that those two extremes and every nuance in between is actually fine for you to live life like that. we've been sold this kind of lie by all the, marketing gurus and the self-development gurus of the world that, you're supposed to be consistent. You're supposed to have this kind of, say yes type mentality to life, that you're supposed to learn how to speak your truth and share your voice and all of these things. But really, to be honest, there are a hell of a lot of people. The majority of the world have got defined throat chakras. So I probably should throw that in there. About 70% of the world have got this center defined. So if yours is undefined, you are already within the minority of people that have their chart showing this. So you're in the 30%. So that's why it does feel like probably most of the time you're surrounded by people who can just always speak. They can always use their voice. They can consistently share what it is they're thinking, feeling. They can share their heart, whatever the sort of classic, sort of sayings are. And for you, it's like, oh my fucking God, like I just don't know how to slip into that kind of effortless, consistent mode, because that's not your lane. That's not your gift. Your gift is to learn to be empowered, to know that you have got any number of ways that you can express your voice. It doesn't always have to be in the spoken word, if that makes sense. So it's learning to not try and control or like package what you're saying in the way that your mind tries to tell you that you should speak. It's empowering yourself to know that in the aligned timing for you, so again, going back to your strategy, your authority. So for example, being a generator, if you've got sacral authority, if your gut is going, hell yes, this is what I want to, share my voice with, fantastic. Use it. Follow your gut, because that's speaking up. If you're a projector, knowing that when you receive an aligned invitation to speak, that's the right timing for you, right? If you know from your authority that it's going, yeah, this feels amazing to speak on this right now with your splenic hit, or maybe, a manifester, right? Well, actually, no, sorry, I won't use the example of a manifester because you can always speak. So, it's just for a reflector, for an example, knowing that actually your gift is to have that sort of more ethereal quality, where some days you might be able to speak all the time, and then other days you might not. You just want to be in your own quiet little bubble, and that's okay. It's like you have your own beautiful, beautiful way of showing up. And it's knowing that, trusting in the universe that the right alignment and timing for you is when you will be able to share your voice. But it doesn't have to be this pressure to feel like it has to be the same, exact same every single day. I'd just love to use an example. I listen to Jordan Younger's podcast a lot, The Balanced Blonde, and she's a reflector, right? So she doesn't have definition here. And yet she has a weekly podcast, and she quite often talks about the fact that she'll just podcast from bed when she's feeling like it. She batches together episodes or interviews, things like that. So it's understanding that at times you can use your voice plenty, right? Like, she's an incredible woman who's built an amazing entrepreneurial business herself using her voice, right? So it certainly doesn't mean that you can't use your voice. It's just exploring ways that you can do it that suits for you. So whether that is podcasting, whether that is getting on, video, whether that is getting into writing, the written word, expressing your voice through the written word, expressing it through artwork. There's any number of ways that you can either be artistically inclined, or even something as straightforward as using a program like Canva and creating shareable artwork tiles that you can post on social media that share what it is you have to say. There are so many. We live in such a beautiful era of freedom and flexibility to go about things in our own unique way, that this is why I just love so much being able to share this with people, especially if they have an undefined throat, because I think you really are the new paradigm, redefining what it is to use your voice and share your wisdom and your magic in the way that is true for you and aligned for you. Now, straight down below the throat chakra is the beautiful G center. This is the big old diamond in the center of the chest area. And if this is undefined for you, just know that this is your home of love, higher self, and identity. So when it's undefined, it is really okay to feel like you've gone through plenty of times in life with no fixed identity, right? It's very much a common characteristic of everyone living with an undefined G center that you can easily end up kind of being the chameleon. You can end up blending in and trying desperately to adapt to the environment around you. It can be very easy to get lost in relationships because, especially if the other person has a defined G center, it's like a magnetic opposites attract type scenario. And because you take on board their energetics and remember, amplify it, you can kind of end up kidding yourself that you're just like the other person. But in fact, all you've done is beautifully use your gift of taking it all on board and making it your own, right? And it can have that classic feeling of waking up one day going, oh my fucking God, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I will stick my hand up and say, I have been there, honey. I have been there. I've done that. I have got every single fucking matching t-shirt, hat, socks, bag, right? I have been there so many times of being the chameleon. If you've listened to any of my previous episodes, you've probably heard me talk about this experience a lot in my life. And so really the key to understanding this about yourself is that it's not a negative thing, right? It is an openness here to who you're around. And that's a beautiful gift, right? It's the wisdom that comes from your home of love, of higher self, of identity. However, what you can do to support yourself and to empower yourself is to start by taking a look at the environment that you are around. Environment is everything for an undefined G center. With the right environment and aligned environment as is correct for you, right? So it's not alignment according to somebody else's rules of alignment. It's alignment for you. Everything else will flow and everything else will feel like you have that sort of stability to allow your own identity to fully emerge. So it's very much understanding that in the right supportive environment, whether that's your home life, your work life, your groups of people that you spend your time with, finding your people, which of course is a journey for so many of us. But it can mean making some really tough calls that if you know you spend a lot of time with certain environments or groups of people or individual people even that don't leave you feeling your highest and brightest and best, then it might be time to do some work to energetically spend less time in that environment or none at all. You know, it can sometimes take these really hard decisions that we have to do to nurture ourselves and to look after ourselves, to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, right? It's the putting your own oxygen mask on first and knowing that self-care is not selfish. And if you spend all your time with someone who is just draining the life out of you, it's probably one of the first places to start. And just knowing as well that with an undefined G center, it's really common to spend a big chunk of time searching for love, searching for your true direction. Those are really significant driving factors with an undefined G center. And And so it's remembering that that's not a negative thing. That's part of your beautiful gift, your beautiful journey. And it's what's driving you towards, what you are supposed to either go through or to go towards, right? And really your gift here is just seeing all the possibilities, the wisdom around love and self-love and higher self and the life experiences that you grow from. And that's then that wisdom that you share, with others and really develop. It's your own unique brand of wisdom, which is really incredible. Now, just over next to the G center is the beautiful ego or heart center. This is the smallest little triangle that's just off to the right-hand side. And when this is undefined, so again, the distinction here is remembering that if it's undefined, it will have lines attached to it. I know myself, when I've been doing readings for a lot of people, I often come across people who have this center completely open. So just remember that if your heart center, for example, or any of the others I'm talking about, have no lines attached to it, and it's just like this little shape kind of floating on its own with nothing coming off it, then that will be touched on in the open centers, part 3 episode. But it does have some similarities, but obviously just understanding that if it's open, it's kind of got its whole own set of characteristics going on. So if you have some lines coming off this, or one line even, just know that this is the center of our kind of motivation, willpower, and sort of the what do I want in life kind of ego. It's like a healthy expression of our desires, our true soul's desires. What I love sharing with undefined heart centers is to know that 70% of the world have this part of themselves undefined, right? So what does that mean? It means that all of, going back to the kind of self-development, self-help, motivational type people who tell us that we are successful people if we are motivated consistently every single day, that we have to show up every single day to be consistently chasing our goals, our desires, our dreams, to be manifesting, like full on all the time, every single day. And you hear people ask questions to say, but some days I just can't, like I don't have that motivation, or some weeks, in fact, I feel like I've fallen off the bandwagon, all of those sayings. So this is what is coming from the undefined heart center. It's like we're trying to live unaligned with what our true selves are. So with this undefined, you won't be consistently motivated, and that is okay. Think of it like your motivation and your willpower. Again, it's the analogy of the wave. It's the tide ebbing and flowing. It'll come, it'll go. And that is true for you. We're not, when we have this center undefined, we are not permanently motivated. However, we can tap into that energy when we choose to. And it's really just understanding that it's a permission slip to be your human true self, rather than trying to hold yourself to this really false energetic standard that is not actually aligned for you. One of the really powerful things that you can tap into here is to look at what lines you do have activated within your heart center, your ego center. And I will link actually in the show notes an episode I did a while back that talks about those specific lines and what those sources of motivation are that will be true for you. So you can think about that, for example, that if you have the gate 26 highlighted coming from, either a black or a red line, it's understanding that that is a true soul motivation for you. And so you can listen in on that episode if you haven't already, and just get a feel for what it is that your soul is here to be truly motivated by, and to really give yourself that permission to understand your true sense of motivation, and rather than taking on board everybody else's advice or pressure or conditioning or what they tell you should be motivated at. Obviously this is really deeply intertwined with abundance and money and financial material things, right, in our life as well. And so it can be really, really powerful to start to do the inner healing work, to rewrite any money stories that you have grown up with, that you've been conditioned by. It can have a really deep conditioning potential here if you've grown up with any sorts of, conditioning around money being a negative thing, or success being a negative thing, or that you are expected to have certain material things in your life to denote success. It's a really important one to go into and work out what is yours, what is the conditioning you've absorbed over your life, and to flush out everything that doesn't serve you. Now, heading straight down from the G center to your sacral chakra, sacral center. So this is what is known as, obviously, within generators and manifesting generators, they are the only ones that have this defined. So projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, this is for you. So this is the part of you that basically 70% of the world around you has got this defined, and they are emitting this kind of energetic buzz that is coming from that motor, that power center, that life force energy that is really delicious and juicy and incredible that they have. For you with this undefined, what that means is that you are taking on board and amplifying anything that is coming from a generator and a mani-gen. So this can really tend towards a sense of running on borrowed energy. It can be really easy to feel like you have got this incredible energy source going on within you and that you can do it all, right? So it can be really empowering to understand that the energy you feel isn't actually your own. It's not yours. It's energy that you've borrowed basically from someone else. And so one of the challenges here is to not overdo it, to not think you're suddenly superhuman, to know your own limits, that just because you feel energized, it's the awareness of knowing, oh shit, of course I do. I just spent the day with my best friend who's a generator, for example. So it's knowing when enough is a real challenge when you have an undefined sacral chakra. So you can really, really empower yourself to identify what are your true energetic kind of goalposts and boundaries, so that you give yourself that permission to go, I am using my own energy in the correct and aligned way for me. I'm not trying to keep up with the 70% of the world who have got this incredible motor running within them. Your lane, your magic, your unique set of gifts come from a completely different energy source, and that is okay. And that is true for you, and that is your powerful kind of zone to work from. It's much more an energy for projectors and manifestors particularly. It's an energy that is very much a unique kind of on and off type energy. It needs periods of use, right? When it's aligned, leaning into your energy strategy and your authority, and then it needs periods of rest as well to recharge and to go into your own sort of self-nourishment zone. Whereas for people with a sacral chakra defined, the generators and the mani-gens, they've got a battery that kind of runs all day. It's a completely different style of energy to what projectors, manifestors, and reflectors have got going on. And so it's just understanding that just because it's different doesn't mean it's any worse, right? It is, we're all on equal terms here. This is new paradigm living. So it's understanding that your energy source is unique to you, and that is okay. And to understand that, you know, knowing the charts of the people that you spend time with is so incredible when it comes to this, because you can really start to identify who it is you spend lots of time with that is, for example, got their sacral chakra defined, and then you go, oh, this suddenly all makes sense. Now, straight down below your sacral chakra is your root chakra. And this, when it is undefined, is essentially your second pressurized center of chi, of life force energy flowing through you. So it is another place where you will feel a pressure, right? Even if it is undefined. Now, the root chakra is home of our adrenaline, our momentum, and also our stress hormones. So an undefined root, basically my running joke, because I have an undefined root chakra, is that me and my undefined root chakra are trying to take over the world. It is very much this kind of, I can't even think of the right word for it right now. It's like a sidekick who is like the gremlin on your shoulder, who can have incredible results, but at the same time is like a fucking nightmare to live with, because it doesn't know when to fucking stop. It is like the ultimate in that it gets an idea of like, we're going to do this thing that we're really excited by, and then is like just so like the I don't know, it's just such a funny characteristic to work with once you do know that you have an undefined root chakra. And obviously you can be a generator and have an undefined root chakra. You can be a mani-gen and have an undefined root chakra. So this is one that kind of goes across the board. It's really a place where we absorb pressure from those who do have it defined. We easily absorb stress from the environment around us and amplify it. Right? So this is why it can very much end up being the endless cycle that leaves you completely burnt out, because you're trying to constantly get rid of that stress and pressure that you feel. And it's very much the to-do lists. It's the energy of trying to hurry and rush to get things over and done with all the time. It's the sitting down to do a project or something and not getting up for another 5 hours because you just know you need to get it done and you need to tick off the to-do list that's 100 things long. So it's very much got that kind of pushing and rushing to get things done just to get it over and done with, because you want to relieve that pressure. And the wisdom that you have to learn to, I guess, work with here, because I'm saying this from a place of my adrenals being completely burnt out, having complete meltdowns because of overwhelm and burnout and stress and hormonal imbalances myself in my own life. Thanks, undefined root chakra. It's learning the wisdom of how stress functions, right? It's learning that the pressure you feel, the stress you feel, is not from within you. It's coming from the world around you, the environment around you. It might be coming from social media, comparing yourself to others. It might be coming from your family. It might be coming from your partner, might be coming from your kids. It's understanding that if you have this undefined, you're kind of like a clean slate, blank slate, right? What you do take on board from the world around you, you absorb and you amplify. So learn about stress, right? Learn that stress is just a sort of thing that you can actually learn to live with. Right? We all experience it. We all feel it. It's learning really good self-care, learning how you uniquely discharge the stress or pressure that you might feel, rather than, again, the sponge analogy, allowing it to fill up and become heavy and saturated. It's doing grounding work to avoid overwhelm. Self-care is so super important, and boundaries, right? Of not taking on board other people's stress, other people's pressure. I've got really close friends in my life, and they are stresses. They are constant stresses. They are always trying to solve everybody else's problems for them, and always trying to fix things, jump in. They're a 3-5 profile, so they're constantly trying to save the day, but they're also going through so many like ups and downs and life learnings themselves, because they kind of like rush in and do shit without being asked, and then realize it's like a clusterfuck. So it's that thing of like, the wisdom that I have been able to learn is that that's their stress and their pressure. And for me as a projector, I feel that stress and pressure absorbed and amplified, but I also feel that typical projector thing that I want to try and get in and fix it for them. But what I've had to learn to do is go, actually, you know what? That's your thing. I can be your listening ear at times, but I have my boundaries around how much I do that, and I don't take it on board. It's not my thing to try and fix. And that's a huge, for me personally, that was a huge, huge stepping stone, because I needed to. I couldn't constantly have that going on for me, because I was walking around carrying this like hot potato of pressure and stress that was theirs and not mine. So, it's really understanding also the wisdom of the to-do lists. You guys have probably heard me talk about this before, that I used to be a massive to-do list writer, and I would literally fill like an A4 page with a million and one things. And I realized that that was a learned habit that I had picked up from my upbringing. I had seen that demonstrated to me, that was how you live your life. And so I just, as an adult, started doing it as well. And the problem is that, of course, you can't get like 100 tasks done in a single day. And it was really having to completely kind of break it all apart and go back to what works for me, right? If I only set myself 3 tasks that I get done today, that is my kind of like, yeah, that's amazing. But I don't put pressure on myself to have to get all of them done, because now I know that from, having to do a lot of my own healing work, that those tasks will still be there tomorrow. The world is not going to end if they don't get done, right? It is very much that energy of starting to understand that we have been conditioned so heavily by society to be productive, to be always on the go, to be doing a million and one things every single day, that our days have become, like a 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. long day, thanks to, that sort of conditioning we've picked up, that you're supposed to get up and you go to the gym before you go to work, and then you go to work, and then at lunchtime you've got tasks you need to do, and then errands you need to run, and then in your afternoon tea break you've got to ring the bank, and then after work you've got to go and pick up the kids and go do activities with them, and then you've got to go home and cook dinner, and then you've got to do, it's like this constant never-ending pressure of, I have to do this, to do. And so it's starting to really unravel that and go, actually, you know what? If I didn't do any of that, will the world fall apart? No. And will I be a lot happier? Probably fucking yes, right? Like, it's really understanding that. And if that's anything that 2020 has showed us, right, is that actually we were living life at a pace and a to-do list that was entirely unsustainable. So it's kind of transforming. If you feel like you're being unproductive, redefining what productivity means for you, and getting true to yourself with what that definition is. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. And I've probably gone on for way longer than I expected to, talking about the root chakra, but it's one that I think is really powerful, much like the throat is really powerful to understand within yourself, within your design. Now, we're going to hook on over to the right-hand side to the triangle that is on the far right facing inwards, and this is our solar plexus. This is our emotional center. And now this is another one that if this is undefined for you, this is one to know that basically it's okay. It's okay. Just give yourself a big old cuddle, because this is one that's really hard to grow up with, I think is probably the thing. It's one that for many people, if they have this undefined, so it's about half the world have this undefined, about 50% have it defined. And if you heard last week, I was talking about how if this is colored in and defined for you, then you have emotional authority. However, if you have this undefined, you're kind of like, in human design, they call it non-emotional, which I think is a really, it's a very staid, old-fashioned way of describing it. Just means you are like the level-headed, cool, calm, collected person. Like, you've probably been told in your life that you're really chill, you're really, calm in any given situation, that you kind of don't freak out about stuff very easily. However, this is one that, again, can be really, really deeply ingrained with conditioning, with coping mechanisms, right? Because, again, if you have this undefined, this is all to do with absorbing the emotions of the world around you, the energetics of the world around you, and amplifying them. And it can carry a really, really deep conditioning within it, and really can just be almost a real vulnerability to taking on board other people's shit, pretty much. It's taking on board the moods, the feelings, the emotions of others around you. It's the opening the, social media, and the first thing you see is someone like having a rant, and you absorb that without even realizing. And it's watching the news and seeing the awful things that happen and feeling so sick to your stomach and carrying that emotion around with you. It is replaying a conversation a million times over in your head because you can't understand, what happened, why it ended up in an argument. It's overthinking every single little conversation that happened between you and someone, and you can't quite pick why they're just like really cold shouldering you, right? So it's very much a deeply intuitive part of you that you will easily pick up on emotions of others. And when I say others, I mean everything from, like I was just saying, social media through to watching the news, through to watching Netflix, right? Like, it can be the emotional, whatever happens in the movie you're watching. So what can happen here is that this is where we pick up all our coping mechanisms and strategies to avoid having to deal with emotions, because your default setting is chill, is like cool, calm, collected, right? So it's kind of hard to suddenly be hit by this wave of really strong emotion, because remember that the other person might be, say, a 2 out of 10 on the scale about something, and you absorb and feel it like it's an 8 out of 10 pissed off about something. So it's really understanding that it is like this surge. It's the hot potato that you've suddenly had chucked at you. And so the coping strategies that come in are like people pleasing, avoiding confrontation, not learning how to have like healthy debate or constructive communication in relationships, avoiding rocking the boat. So it's really important, if you have an undefined solar plexus, emotional center, to really have incredibly strong boundaries around what emotion you are willing to take on. My number one tip is to stop watching the news. Don't even go, maybe if you want to stay abreast of what's going on, go on like maybe once a day at like lunchtime and check out your kind of trusted news source, and that's it. Like, don't hang out there, don't watch it, don't absorb that information. Have really strong social media boundaries. If there's people that are way too much to handle on social media, you don't have to unfollow them if you think it'll hurt their feelings, but just mute them. There's fantastic settings on Facebook and Instagram that you can either mute people, you can pause them, I think on Facebook for 30 days, or you can even just basically mute them. I think it's called unfollow but still stay friends, so there's ways that you can curate your social media for your own mental health, right? This is deeply related to our mental health as well, because it's so important to practice self-care. with an undefined solar plexus, you have to have really active ways of discharging all of that emotion that you've picked up that is not your own, basically. If you're on your own and in your own aura, you really will feel so much more at peace. And that's where it can really become so empowering to understand that you do have to put your own oxygen mask on first. You can't kind of sacrifice yourself, because it just means that you are going to never be able to be your own magical genius, right? Like, you are not going to be able to nurture and nourish yourself if you are constantly soaking up and absorbing the energetics and the emotional spectrum of the world around you. You need to be at your lightest and brightest and, shiniest, best, and in your alignment. So it's learning, I guess, emotional intelligence. Like, for myself, I'll talk about this in the episode about open chakras, but I have a completely open solar plexus. So I've had to learn as an adult how to have healthy, kind of conversations in my relationship that were not just avoidant or codependent, because those were my two strategies, right? To be able to be in a romantic relationship, I was either avoidant to not rock the boat, or I was codependent to not rock the boat, because I just wanted to be like, let me do everything for you, because I don't know how else to be in this relationship, because I don't want to cause issues, right? So it's really understanding that you have to sometimes go back and learn how to do these things, because I wasn't taught emotional intelligence. I wasn't taught how to have healthy confrontation. I wasn't taught how to stand up for my own opinions without feeling the responsibility for somebody else's emotions and trying to solve all of their problems. I wasn't empowered to, I guess, not take on board and feel responsible for the reaction of other people. It's those classic things that it's like, if people aren't, I can't quite remember the quote, but it's basically saying, like, if your circle isn't cheering for you, right? Like, and that's the thing, is like understanding that the way other people react to you is not your responsibility. And I think particularly with an undefined emotional center and undefined solar plexus, that's really important to understand. It's like other people's response emotionally to whatever is going on for you, whether that is success, whether that's wins, whether that's, your own tough times, how they respond is not your duty to fix. And that's really important to understand. So as I say, self-care, boundaries, really good practices to flush out anything. I'm a big fan of setting yourself up with a morning ritual or routine that is really supportive of that, because it allows you to set the intention for your day with that core vibration that you are going to be embracing. So rather than waking up in the morning and immediately spending time on other people's shit, you are waking up and choosing to nurture yourself first. So whether that looks like meditating, journaling, going for a walk, anything that is going to nourish yourself and really allows you to flush out anywhere where you might still be holding on to something that is not yours, especially on this emotional center. Journaling, I found such a crucial practice for me when I was first starting on my journey, because it allowed me to write down and release all of this stuff that I'd been holding on to for years, right? I'd never been able to get it out of me. And once I was allowed to just kind of write on a page, wasn't going anywhere. No one was seeing it. It was just me writing it for myself. But it was such a cathartic process to get rid of all these burdens that I had held on to for 30 years, right? So it's understanding and therapy, going to a counselor, just the most incredible thing to give myself, having someone that I could go and talk to. Mental health, counseling, therapist. If you haven't got one, go and see one. Even if you don't think you've got anything that you need to talk about, you will. You will have something to talk about. And I cannot I cannot sing the praises enough of just having someone like that is a professional who you can go and talk to in a safe space, a safe container, particularly if you have an undefined solar plexus, because you will be so surprised of the stuff that you've been carrying around for a really, really fucking long time. And just being able to flush it out and release it. And it might take several goes. That's the thing, is like, it doesn't have to be a one and done. It can be over the space of a few months. I'm trying to think how long, when I last was seeing my therapist regularly, I think I was doing like every 2 weeks, and I did it for like maybe 3 or 4 sessions. Like, it wasn't a really long-term thing. And that was all I needed, just to have those 3 or 4 sessions, just to really purge so much stuff that was weighing on me and holding me under, really, you know, mental health wise, emotionally, and just gave me such a freedom to put it down. It was like baggage that I just needed to be able to put down. And it was so wonderful. So I highly recommend that as well. And you know me, like, I am the biggest proponent of supporting mental health. So even if you don't think you need it, go and see a therapist, because trust me, it will change your fucking life. And just lastly, let's talk about the beautiful splenic center. So this is over on the far left-hand side of your chart, the triangle that's facing inwards. So this is basically the spleen, when it's undefined, is all to do with transforming and reframing what would be like our human kind of primal awareness and consciousness. This is like our survival awareness and instincts. So it's often referred to as our fears. And so when you can think about this is like from a primal level of us as humans, like, what do we need for survival? What do we need to be secure? What do we need to be safe? How do we handle abandonment, codependency, all of those sorts of things? So if this is undefined, one of your soul's main tasks in this lifetime is to transform whatever fears you have come here with. So the lines that are coming from this part of your chart will all have a corresponding fear. And there is an episode I did a while back that talks about all of those. So I'll link it with the show notes. You can go back and have your chart handy and just check out which ones of those are yours in particular. And so, it's like these are actually the things that I've got with me all the time. And they can give you kind of your signs, like, of what are going to be your biggest things to kind of focus on reframing and transforming. And then once you've transformed them into the positive expression of those, because everything's got a positive expression, it's like a wisdom that you gain from transforming that fear, then that's part of your unique set of gifts and magic and things that you're here to help other people with. Because once you've been through it yourself, that is a huge source of wisdom that you then get to share with others and help them with facing their own fears and things that they have got within themselves. So the splenic center is very much to do with our sixth senses, our heightened senses, our awareness. When it's undefined, it's very much can have that deeply intuitive awareness of the world. With this undefined, it really gives you the gift of being someone who is that very empathic, intuitive person, being a bit of a seer, a guide for others. You know, it's real deep wisdom that comes from here, because it's very much to do with our sensory experience and being highly sensitized to the world around you. So it's understanding that pretty much just going from the low vibration expression of our kind of human, our little human meat sack body that's like roaming around this planet, going from the low vibration of things that we might be fearful of, whether that's like fear of the future, fear of the past, fear of, putting other people in positions of power and seeing ourselves as powerless in comparison. There's so many things that can come from here, rather than living in that vibration of allowing that to control your decisions, your direction, your day-to-day life. it's healing it, it's transforming it. It's going, actually, you know what? I can have, take that fear of the future, for example, and I can transform it, and I can go, actually, you know what? I am really aware of what's coming up, and I've got a nose for the future. I can see things. I can understand that rather than being fearful of it, I'm really aware of it. And I've got a real, just like sixth sense about what's coming up, and I can go and help other people, or I can kind of see into the future a little bit and know and kind of get ahead of the game, and I can nip things in the bud before they go any further, or I can know just intuitively what to go for, because that's going to be the thing for my future, for example. So it's really beautiful. They're powerful tools that we've come here with, each of us individually, and they can really be beautifully transformed. So I hope that you've enjoyed this part 2 of all the undefined centers and chakras, and I'd love to know how you find these, whether they're helpful little kind of quick reminders about your own gifts, your own unique combination. Obviously, now having done the defined centers and the undefined, you'll have a really good grasp of your own unique kind of integration between all of these, whether it is that you've got, say, your sacral chakra and your root chakra and your emotional center defined, and then all the others are undefined or open, for example. You can now start to see how all of these beautiful gifts that you've got within you come into play and come into making up what it is to be truly you and uniquely you. So as always, thank you so much for being here and listening in, and I hope you loved it. I hope you got something out of this episode. As always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And I love to know when you've been listening in. I love to know when you've had any aha moments or in real life situations. So feel free to DM me, email me, screenshot and tag me in the episode if you're listening in. And as always, enormous hugs through the microphone. If you want to join my Facebook group, it's all about human design, you can do so with the link in the show notes with this episode. And as always, I will see you on the next episode.